Oh,
Go, go. We are live. Hello, aloha, and welcome. You're here with Heidi Love. I am one of your hosts for Real Life Talk, and we're so happy to have you on the call today. We are talking about how we hurt others by helping them instead of actually helping them. And we're going to unpack that a little bit. Timothy and I often talk about codependency and how we hurt ourselves by helping others, but we don't talk about how we hurt them by helping them. So we're going to talk about that today. So stay on with us and see if you are helping or hurting. We are part of Love Coach Academy, and we also have our own individual practices. So to get a hold of us, watch the websites below, and I'll scroll mine and Timothy's website addresses, and you can reach out to us anytime. We are here for you. I'll let Timothy introduce himself.
I want to admit that I am rushing in here sweaty from getting a new chainsaw. If you've ever lived in town, there's no machete. Well, there's a saw, machete, and then a chainsaw. And so, wow, I got carried away with how down time. Barely made it. That's why I'm a little disheveled. My name's Timothy Earle. I am also associated. Louder?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out.
I
Now no volume, it's worse.
Okay, how about now?
Now's good.
Wow, that's really loud. Okay, so hopefully the sound is better, and Heidi will tell me if now. So my name's Timothy Earle. I live on the island of Maui. I just came from chainsawing outside. That's why I'm disheveled. I am a interpersonal development coach. I work with individuals and couples on things, sweet shame and guilt in relationship to sensuality, sexuality, our desires, our negative rise. We start to go for what we true and ability journey work on the island, in the mainland, and I also, like Heidi, do discovery calls. They're a half hour, 20 minutes, and that way we can make sure if you've got something you want to work on, that our services are a good fit for you. All you have to do is look at the email scrolling down below, get our phone number, text us, email us, and we'll set up a free discovery call. I'm positive you'll get something out of it, and hopefully we'll all decide to. Are you still hearing me, or should I take this headphones off?
It's better now that you're leaning forward. Did you read the comment that like stay close to the microphone? Just put it on your mouth and talk like this to the just eat the microphone, Timothy.
All right, I will hold it right here like I'm an airplane pilot.
Yes, we want to hear every word you say. You have a lot of wisdom to give, so I don't want to miss any of it. And I know they don't want to either. Hi, Rebecca. So glad to have you on the call. I want to mention that you guys can type in the comments box and we can see them and we can write back to you. So if you have questions or comments or you want to say anything or you want us to read anything, go ahead and put it in the Facebook comment box and we will do our best to get it on there. Like I said, today we're going to talk about kind of a different spin or a different angle on codependency. And codependency is a broad term. And if you've heard the word and you're curious about it, Timothy and I did a series of calls, I think 8 or 10 of them back to back. So you can go and look them up. Codependency, you would look up Recovery Talk, Timothy Earle, Heidi Love. And you can find those and re-listen to them and also reach out to us about it. But what I want to talk about today is sometimes even with the best intentions, and helping others isn't always to do with codependency. period. I mean, being of service is a wonderful value that many of us have. I know I have it. I know Timothy has it. And there's nothing unhealthy about being of service or wanting to contribute. We talk a lot about where it crosses those lines, and it can. However, when it does cross those lines and we think, even with the most love, the best intention, that we're taking care, helping somebody else, we actually could be really hurting them. And what inspired me to talk about this is I'm kind of in a situation where I'm seeing a lot of that right now. And so it's very up in my face. And I ordered this book. Can you guys see it? Oh, I don't know how to turn it right. It's How Many Mountains by Russell Schultz. And it's not popular and you may not find it. I found it on Amazon. This is my great uncle. I lived with him when he was in the 6th grade. It's Russell Sear Schultz. So I ordered this book because I remembered him as being somebody that overcame all obstacles. And he had, I can't even remember now reading it. He had muscular dystrophy or cerebral palsy. And I don't know which one right now. I can't honestly tell you. But I wanted to read to you an excerpt from this book because he was somebody that could have lived his whole life not doing much. And he would have had every right to do that with his physical limitations. And because of how his mom was, because he wasn't enabled to live in major disability, he was a fantastic man that could do everything. He invented the Cushman golf cart because he wanted to drive a hand-operated car. He sold the patent for $10,000 so he could build his own car. Bummer, but he was happy. He was so happy because he could have his little car and he'd drive around town and all the cops knew him. But anyway, interesting guy, and I'm going to read to you a little bit of the story so you get where I'm going with it. But first, if you want to jump in and say anything about any of that, Timothy, I'll pause. Nah? Okay. So this is Russell Sear Schultz. I'm just going to tell you a funny memory I have with him. I was in the 6th grade and I used to go everywhere with him and his wife because I was very awkward and I didn't have friends and I didn't like people. So I hung out with my wheelchair auntie and uncle. And I used to ride on the side of his wheelchair and he would let me drive it. You know, it's electric. So we were in the mall one day and I was sitting on his lap driving the wheelchair and I ran into the kiosk in the middle of the mall and knocked everything over. Knocked the whole display over. And he's just somebody that could make everything okay, no matter what. You know, he's sitting there. He's very crippled. You know, his hand was like this and his face was very like that. And he was just the most loving, amazing man. So anyway, this is him writing. Mom was still feeding me at the time, but that day she presented me with quite a problem. She entered my room, pulling my red wagon behind her with my lunch neatly placed inside it. With a determined look, she pushed the wagon sideways beside my bed. Then she picked me up and flipped me over onto my stomach. I stared at the plate of food as she patted me firmly on the back. She said, "Now, Russ, you must learn to feed yourself. Lean over there and pick up your spoon. I will not give you one single bite. You must learn to feed yourself again. No more until supper time either." And she left the room. I forced my hand down and clumsily clutched the spoon. My hand shook and I spilled the first spoonful into the bottom of the wagon. And I cried and I dirtied it. I wiped my tears, angry, so angry at my mother, and disgusted with myself because I couldn't do it. As I tried again, my face slipped into the mashed potatoes. I sputtered and gasped, but managed to lift my face out of the warm white mass. More tears onto the plate and mixed with the red juice from the beets. Mom stuck to her decision, though, and forbid anyone to come in the room and help me. She was standing guard and told them to leave immediately when they came near the door. She was determined I would learn to feed myself once again. I hated mealtime and I fought to keep my faith up in myself and in the Lord. Sometimes my sister Toots would sneak up and take the spoon and offer me a few bites and then dash out of the room like a child expecting to be caught at the cookie jar. I enjoyed the smirking satisfaction I felt when Mom would come in and say, "My Rush, you're doing better. I knew you could do it." My coordination improved in spite of the total grudge against my mother, and one day I saw the look of pride in her eyes as she witnessed weeks of trial and error and a very messy wagon and floor. I realized her sternness and determination had given me the opportunity to gain back my self-respect and my ability to feed myself. So I could cry because I remember the first time reading that and thinking, oh my God, my Grandma Gila is so mean. And I lived with her too. She was in the front of the house and they were in the back of the house. And but there's stories like that all through the book, and it just touches my heart because being a recovered codependent, there's so many times when I've helped other people when it didn't help them, it hurt them. If he would have not had that hard thing to go through and his mom wouldn't have made him feed himself, he would have been totally dependent on other people to even eat his own food. He couldn't have fed himself. And when I met this man, the same man that wrote this, he lived on his own, no help, no caregivers. He had a wife that was paralyzed from the waist down. She was a beautiful blonde lady. That was his dream, to get married and fall in love. And he met a lady that she had polio, was paralyzed from the waist down, but beautiful lady. And he invented everything in their house with electric hoists and hand operated everything. They got themselves in and out of the toilet. They cleaned themselves up. They put themselves to bed, all with electric everything, but they did not have a caregiver. And he was not dependent on other people for his well-being, where many other people in his position would have been. And I have to believe it was because my dear Grandma Gila was a hard ass. I mean, some people would call her that, but she really enabled him to be empowered and stretch himself to his own limits. I mean, he had limits. He had limits he'll never overcome, but he was able to do every single thing he could do because he was able to do it. And oftentimes we take away people's ability to go as far as they can because we're always trying to rescue them. Can't hear you.
Can't hear me?
Oh, there you go.
Really moving story. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm just touched. My heart was a little sore. In a good way. Yeah. The audacity, the strength in the mother to know that what she was doing was actually for her benefit. His benefit. I can only think that it was hard on her too, even if she didn't show it, even if she drew the boundary with the whole family and said, no, he's going to learn to do these things. Because I'm assuming, as your story goes, that a lot of the learning was a slow process, was not just 3 times, but was more like 50.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming in the book, tell me that I may not read it, that he's grateful for her strictness, not severity, but like strictness, discipline.
Yeah.
And believing in him, right? She said, I mean, in a way, she's voting his sovereignty.
Yeah.
Self-reliant.
She totally believed in him. And he does, as he goes through the book, he tells how thankful he was for all the people that didn't pity him and didn't treat him like he had bad disabilities and allowed him to do and be whatever he could stretch into. And, this is an interesting example because he literally had major physical disabilities. And there's so many people in life that don't have those type of things, but we're still helping them when they could go do it, right? And it really hurts them from being empowered. I'll give a totally different example of, and I know you've counseled this too, Timothy, with parents that are having preteens or teenagers, and they're still trying to control everything and do everything to prevent the child from getting hurt, right? We don't want them to make bad decisions because my poor baby's going to be hurt. I'm one of those guilty mamas. And when we start allowing them to problem solve, like, hey, this is a problem happening in the household. Here's some solutions. I think, what solutions do you think would help us with that? And allowing them some space to come up with some solutions, even if they're ones will fail. They need to fail. Like, how many parents know that their kids need to fail? Yeah. We have a comment here. The hardest thing for a mother is to watch a child struggle, let alone be the cause of it. We are protectors, so it's not normal to watch them struggle. This is still the hardest thing for me to learn with my children.
I think most parents and partners, people who love others, we don't want the ones we love to suffer physically, mentally, emotionally. And then some of us even spiritually, we want them spiritual peace. And the whole saying of you can't lead a horse to water, with many people, not just teenagers, we often give advice, listen to it. Maybe they figure out another way. Maybe they figure.
Darn, we keep losing you in and out, Timothy.
I'm going to try it without, and I'll lean in close. So just this idea that when we love someone, we don't want them to suffer. And it's through the idea that we're helping them. I'm helping prevent them from failure, prevent them from suffering emotionally, mentally, physically. And so I'm teaching them the things they need to know. And when someone's resistant to that, their own wisdom goes against ours. It's often much better to just allow them to fail. I think of this example on the playground that I use with parents who have small children. And any of you have gone to the playground or somewhere like that, which most parents have, if you actually sit on the bench, just sit your child on the bench and just hold back and allow your child to figure out where they're going to go play on the ground, learn a lot. Some children will sit on the bench for 20 minutes and just observe. And a lot of the times parents will intervene. Go play over there, go do this, or hey, I'll come with you. Rather than really respect the approach that each unique has. And I know with my daughter, Gabrielle, I sat at the park bench probably 15, 20 minutes. She watched and watched. She figured out at age 5 who the bullies were, who the fun kids were. Was getting, and then she decided, then she'd come back and sit every once in a while and check, and she'd go back out. A lot of parents get overly involved. A beautiful example is, and you see this at the ground, your child or somebody's child falls, scrapes their knee, starts crying. The next thing you know, there's a father running out there to scoop that child up. And if they had simply sat and observed, often the child would look up, look at them crying, and if the parent just sat content and gave an expression of you're okay and waited, most of the time that child will self-regulate, go back to playing. And because the parent has intervened with the idea of preventing suffering, they've actually set a subconscious pattern in motion. And I would say we're all doing this with each other a lot. And so if we can pull it back and really get our nose out of people's business, my business is not your business is not mine. If you ask us to help, really good responses for me to say, well, what are your thoughts? Let's get an understanding of where Heidi's at. What has she thought about? What has she tried? I'm just being empathetic. I'm simply being curious. It's allowing her to think and, oh, I know. I'm going to do this, this, and this. Great. Like any, no, actually, great. Or if I really feel like there's something I'd like to share, Heidi, share it. She takes it or leaves it. But I'm not invested in emotionally attached to the outcome. Not an easy thing to do, and yet when we do it, you can the child setting us up just fast where child is constantly looking to us for advice, doesn't want it, is afraid of failing, won't make attempts to go out and do things because they don't want to fail, they don't want to parents, and they're just caught.
Yeah. Yeah.
or they rebel like I.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of sneaky ways this comes into play. It comes into play with parenting. It especially comes into play if you're working with people with disabilities, and even with people with mental or physical or both disabilities can be empowered to do a lot more than we give them a chance to do. This also really comes into play in addiction. So let's take the person that's in love with an alcoholic, and the alcoholic says they want to quit drinking, but they're not taking any action towards quitting drinking. So the partners takes their money, takes their keys, dumps all the alcohol down the drain, and they're trying to help them. They're trying to help them by controlling them not to get the booze. And then this starts this cycle of anxiety of, if I'm doing it, if I'm controlling everything, they'll be okay. And the minute I go to work, they're not going to be okay, because then they're back to making their own choices. And so even while we may give someone a reprieve by helping them or by doing something like that, essentially they have to choose it on their own, or it won't stick, won't be authentic. And they actually get weaker and weaker, not healthier and healthier. I have a really tender story that I can tell you, and you guys might think I'm my Grandma Megula. I was channeling my Grandma Megula. No, I'm just kidding. So I had people enable me in my drinking, and then I also had people that had hard boundaries with me. And of course, when we're the alcoholic and we want to do whatever we want, we don't like the boundaries. We don't like the rules. And anyway, I sobered up, and my one of my family members, I'll keep them anonymous, one of my family members continued to go in and out drinking and was living with another family member. And that family member has been caretaking this one that's been drinking forever. And I told them that when I go visit, if this particular person is drinking, I won't stay there. It's okay. They can drink. They do whatever they want. I just want to stay in the house. I'll stay somewhere else. And if I'm to stay there, then they're going through a sober bout, whatever. So I went. This person ended up drinking and got really, really bad. And I was like, okay, should I leave? They leave. They went out for a walk on the road, and it's very hot in Arizona, very hot. It was dangerous for the person. And the person that they lived with was like, oh my gosh, we have to go drive and find them. And I said, well, I'll stay here if we let them go do whatever they're going to do and don't do that. And if not, I'm going to leave, and it's fine. You go do whatever you need to do. But basically I was saying, let your baby lay on the road and pass out dead, and leave her for whatever, leave it to chance. And seems like a really harsh thing to do. But she got picked up, she got a consequence, and she ended up sober for a year. So it's just, these are hard things to decide. But I would ask yourself an honest question. Is your help hurting, or is it empowering the person that you love?
Just FYI, I believe you're at your friend's house. She's fabulous. I just saw her lay down my feet, so maybe introduce her so everybody else knows.
Johnny Perry, say hi.
Hi. Hi, I'm here.
Maybe you can grace us with your voice at the end or something. That would be lovely. I haven't heard you in a while. Thank you for joining us live.
Yes.
I want to just play the other side of it, and you and I both unfortunately know.
Yeah.
There are times where we just can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And doing what Heidi said, where we don't sleep and we suffer and we're trying to control somebody else's addiction, is really hard. And I've lost personal family members to addiction, suicide, but substance abuse was involved. And I've lost clients whose parents were following my advice, and I was giving the same advice Heidi's giving of not going to change until they sober up. We're trying to get them to go. We had them in and out of rehabs, lots of things, and didn't work. However, the enabling that some of my clients were doing with their children wasn't working either. And so I just want to empathize that there are times where our what if mind thinks, if I don't do something, my child's going to die, or my family member, my partner. And there's a risk to that when we have substances involved or depression. And at the same time, trying to bring the resources and make them available without forcing them on someone, trying to have setting boundaries like Heidi did. If I'm not going out and driving and looking for that person, and then notice the natural consequences actually helped her. And the hard part, the really hard part, is being willing to know that it's their life and that nothing I say or do is going to actually change their addiction until they're willing to seek help. And at that point, professionals or others can assist. And I know in my own addiction, I needed to hit a bottom, things to get really bad for me to be able to see that this had been an ongoing issue in my life, to seek therapy and a men's group, and now to continue to seek really good quality people to reflect with me, make sure that I'm staying healthy or sober. And we've got other talks on addiction and sober, healthy living, what that means. Check that out. But I just want to empathize for the parents of that are out there, Heidi and myself, lost to addiction or to suicide, and there really was nothing we could.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, and I want to be tender to your tears, and I'm imagining you're thinking about your brother. And it is.
And this one coming to my mind, this one young, spent a lot of time with and her parents, and I got them to stop enabling little by little. It was hard, and she just didn't really change her addiction, and I don't think she meant to kill herself. I really think just took too much heroin or whatever it was that sent her over. And she was coming to meetings with me once in a while. I was offering that. I was driving her there. I would sit there with her, but she just didn't willingly engage fully and commit.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think she actually meant to end her life. And that's the problem with addiction. It's you're driving, you're doing too much, and
these are the hard questions. And again, I'm telling stories that sound harsh or whatever. And I'm in no way saying that we don't offer love and we don't offer tools. But if we are offering someone a hammer because they need to put in the nail, and we're constantly holding the hammer, putting in the nail, and then we're gone one day and they don't know how to pick up the hammer and pound in the nail, we've harmed them. That's more the analogy that I'm talking about. So I'm not saying abandon people and be like, do whatever you want. I mean, I'm sure my grandma sat outside that door and cried because she was terrified her baby might starve to death. And I'm sure she wouldn't have let him starve to death. She probably would have put limits of, okay, he's definitely not going to do it. It's been a week now, and I know he's not getting anything down. And I'm sure she would have fed him, but she pushed it to the limit of him being empowered to have some control over his body again. And
if we come into softer examples again, back off the edge we were on, back into relationship, common relationship, there's also this sneaky little thing where maybe I think Heidi spends much time at home, online, working on coaching and doing her stuff, and doesn't get out enough and isn't social. And so I'm constantly trying to set up social events at the house or for Heidi to get her out, right? And I'm addressing her issue. But Heidi doesn't even think it's an issue. She's totally comfortable at home, likes spending time alone and online with people. It doesn't really want to be that social, and she sees her 2 or 3 friends every week and goes for a swim in the ocean, and that's enough. Notice I'm, again, getting involved in her business, and it's not even her business, she's not even aware of it. She has no problem with herself, right?
Mhm.
We have to watch too projection of, oh, this person's this way and they really ought to be that way. We're defining them and we're fixing them. Nobody needs fixing, right? If they want assistance, they'll ask for it. And again, the best way to approach that is to curious, ask questions, see if we can't get them to find their own solution. Now, that doesn't stroke Timothy Earle's ego as a coach. I gave them this advice, they went and did it, and it worked. Some of the worst coaching I've ever done has been that kind of coaching. The better coaching is, tell me more. Let's explore this. What are you really wanting? How do you see yourself getting there? Open-ended questions that really allow the person to create their own plan. And then all I'm there, if they want it, is as an accountability partner to help them follow through or fine-tune it or change it. And once they get success with something, now they've got a model that they can implement lots of different ways. But be careful of thinking you know best when someone else is an introvert and they're really happy being that.
I'm wondering if any of you listening can share any place where you thought you were helping, but maybe you're hurting, and go ahead and type it in the chat box and we can talk about it. Can you think of a personal time you did that, Timothy? And I'm trying to think of one too.
Yeah, I can. I think of dance a month ago or something, and I'm thinking the organizer needs to make more money, and people aren't donating enough money to him. I think is true. Even he's said that to me. And so I'm just going to announce at the end of the circle his PayPal and encourage people I'm helping to donate money. Well, I didn't know this. He's got the closing circle broken into two parts. First is kind of grounding and really staying with the dance. And then there's 7 ohms. I never really paid attention to the structure. And then there's announcements. Well, I did the announcement before it was proper, and he shut me down. And I went to, this can be a big part. I'm giving advice, and then someone says, I don't want it right now, or I don't want it at all. And then I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to be mad. I'm going to take it personally. All he was saying was, now's not the right time to wait a little bit, right? He wasn't saying I did anything wrong, but I definitely got a little like, uh-oh. I went and checked with him afterward, and he explained to me the process. So that's an example of me thinking I'm helping. I'm actually modeling something up. Better often to, again, approach people and say, I noticed something. Like some help. Would you like to talk about it? No, I don't. Okay.
That's awesome. Awesome one. We have example helping my kids financially. That's one I can certainly relate to, and overextending myself at times to do it. And I'm echoing. Am I echoing on your end? Okay. So I remember one summer I was traveling with my kids and paying a lot out, and it just my youngest daughter was frustrated because she didn't have her own money. She wanted to buy this or that. She loves shopping, and I was feeling bad about myself because I didn't have more. And I'm like, geez, we're doing all this and it's not enough. And there was part of me that was mad about it, and part of me that felt not good enough, like I didn't have enough. And what happened out of that is when she went home, my boundary was, my truth was, I want to help to provide for their home or their groceries or their basic needs, but not extra. I'm not going to pay for, them to go buy clothes anymore, or them to go do whatever. And she loved those things so much. Me having the boundary of, this is the amount you get, do what you want to do with it. It's not my business after, those things are paid. She started making her own money, and she got really proud, and she paid for herself to have her teeth fixed. And she was so excited when she paid her first vet bill by herself for her dog, because she used to call me when her dog had to go to the vet and be like, Mom, Roxy needs to go to the vet. And she was very empowered because I quit rescuing every time the dog was sick, or every time she had a dental bill, or every time, she wanted to do something. I quit providing all that, and she started doing it. And those are just, those are real examples that if we don't let someone I mean, I think about myself. My parents didn't do it on purpose, but I've lived on my own since I was 15, and I am an extremely resourceful survival kind of person. And that is a direct result of having to. I mean, I could have chosen the other road too and totally buckled down and went the other direction with being taken care of by others, but I didn't. I fought for what I wanted because I was given the opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful answer to helping children financially. We often, as parents, I know my parents towards me, mom and dad are separated, but I'm sure my father at times goes, wow, I definitely over-enabled Timothy. He's right. And that didn't necessarily help me. And then there were times where they didn't, and that taught me to be resourceful. I see it a lot with the families that I used to work with, and still sometimes do, where they're giving their child a $500 a month allowance for doing nothing, and then wondering why the child's using that money with things that they don't approve of. You know, pretty obvious to most of us, but if we look at our finances and how we're investing in ourselves, in our future, and in others, often we can look even in ourselves. Where am I overindulging? Where am I not actually investing properly in my own life? And then we can often see where we're doing that with others. I think of my current primary relationship, and it would be easy at times to enable the relationship to function in a way that doesn't teach self-reliance. And I know over time, as I've stuck with my boundary, she actually respects me, appreciates it, and has become more empowered in her own life than when I have overstretched or enabled. And I also noticed that if I do that, I often can get resentful of the fact that I did that, and I'm not, in my mind, being appreciated enough. So I would also say with finances and helping children, it's okay to gift them things, but make sure that gift is a gift and not contingent and unspoken contingencies, because then it creates resentment on both ends. Children don't want your money, or and they know they're kind of manipulating you, but you're also manipulating, coercing them. So if it is a gift, sure that's clear in your own heart before you offer.
Yeah, I think that that's a really important thing to say. And I like honest check-in questions for myself. Like honest check-in would be, do I have the money to give? Okay, yes or no? Yes. Do I want to give the money? Maybe I don't want to give it, but I feel like I have to. And then there's something to look at, right? So I'm getting aware with myself. Let's take an example of maybe one of your family members or a kid has a credit card and they're constantly shopping on Amazon, and you usually give them, $1,000 a month, and then they spend that $1,000 a month on Amazon, and then they call you and they're like, oh my God, I have a flat tire, or oh my God, my car broke down, and you're like, well, where'd the $1,000 go? Well, I already spent it. And then you give them more, but you're mad because you're going over what you set as your budget. So these are where you first have to be honest with yourself. How much do you want to give? And do you want to give? And then second, you have to be honest about your expectations or strings attached, because sometimes we have none and it's just a gift. And if they go do drugs with it, none of our business, right? But if we have a string attached, like if I give you this much per month, I expect you pay your rent and your groceries with that. Do not ask me for more money if you haven't done that. That's a clear communication, and they can agree or not agree. So it's having those clear spoken expectations or agreements, and being first honest with yourself is the most important thing.
And we can always adjust. Hey, kid, I gave you $1,000 to fix the car. You blew it on shoes and pot, and I'm not giving you another $1,000 to fix the car. Or I'm going to take the car and do what I should have done the first time, get it fixed, or you take it in the mechanic and I'll pay for it with my credit card over the phone, right? And don't ask me for more money. I'm not giving you money. You can ask for things and I'll I'll buy you tickets at the movie theater. You can show up at 7:30 and go see the movie, but I'm not um, giving you cash because you haven't shown me to be responsible with it, right? And so we adjust. But notice I'm not like you have to stay home every weekend for 3 months or some kind of weird consequence laid on.
Yeah. And then again, I guess what I really want to drive home today, or what I want to share, is that when we're helping someone and hurting them, we're hurting both of us. And when we're there to support them and cheer them on and let them pick up the hammer, let them feed themselves, let them empower themselves, we're actually giving them a bigger gift. And it is sometimes painful to watch, and sometimes painful, especially if you're a controlling person and you're trying to teach someone how to do something and they're doing it all wrong, the laundry wrong, the dishes wrong, the cleaning wrong, but you aren't allowing them to do it because you take back control. And if you got to get it done, you do it yourself, kind of thing. Then you're also not empowering them to learn. And that was something I struggled with. I was very particular about the way I liked things clean and done. And I really had to let go of that with my kids to let them do it. And now they both keep amazing houses and they're into it and they do it their own way. And now my daughter, when I go to her house, tells me how to put the dishes in the sink. It's kind of funny. But
Well, it is, Heidi's not saying, like you're going to teach your child to ride a bike. You get on your bike, you have a child watch you ride the bike. You do it in a way that's kind of wobbly and not perfect so that they get an idea that, yeah, this is kind of how you ride a bike, right? You're not setting you get on the bike and ride it perfectly and the kid thinks they should be able to do that. And then you show them how to ride it perfectly. Then you say, okay, now your turn. There's a process, right? But at some point, the kid keeps falling over on their bike and they cry, but they get back up and they try again. You do back off, right? And you let them go through the trial and error until they get it. Unless you're my French nephew who riding a bike. Well, he's got kinesthetic intelligence. He's gifted, right? So that's the other thing I would say is that not each child's the same. Not each relationship is the same. Everybody is a little different. Some people are really great kinesthetically. Some people are better book learners. Some people are emotionally just naturally. So sometimes it does take teaching someone something. But at some point, we do have to allow people to make mistakes and learn on their own. Yeah. And then eventually, like Heidi said, her kids came all the way to where they're clean, organized as she wanted them to be when
I tried to control it. They taught me the best lessons. So I wanted to read one more thing from this book, How Many Mountains? But I wonder if you guys can see the picture. There's his wife and there's him. So that is Kathy. But they were told that they couldn't have sex. And they struggled with, could we or couldn't we? So this is about them overcoming other people's limitations put on them. So Kathy entered the main part of our house wrapped in a beautiful pink negligee, her golden hair falling onto her shoulders. She seemed calm and smiled at me. Then she removed the footrests from her wheelchair in order to get closer to the bed. Careful now, I cautioned. I felt so terribly inadequate. After much struggle, she flopped onto the bed, pale and exhausted. I tipped my own wheelchair backward, and after pushing with all my might, I also ended up safely on the bed, grateful I hadn't ended up on the floor. I was so dang nervous. How about a game of chess, I asked, as we lay there breathless, and she laughed and pushed herself nearer to me. No, Mr. Schultz, you'll have to think of something else. I didn't marry you for your ability to play chessboard. I took her in my arms, and after much trial and error, we discovered we were far more than just two people who needed companionship. We discovered many secrets that night, along with the sensitive spot behind Kathy's ear and the way she responded to me touching it. Love came naturally to us that night, and we reveled in the glory of it.
Something for all of us to learn in that. Yeah, kind of a side thing. I don't think this has to do with the topic, but just this idea that, well, maybe it does. Maybe some of us in many ways are, I'll own this as a man, exposure to pornography at an early age. Men in my life who taught me things that were um, actually in my best interest or my partner's best interest. And then these subconscious patterns getting in the way, and then assuming that I knew something rather than really asking your partner, how does that feel? What would you like? Both ways. And really using words as well as nonverbal communication to be attuned to each other and to explore, as they so beautifully described, the slow, attuned, precious touch that we can move into long before anything becomes actually penetrative or highly sexual. Not that it can't, but just that pathway, rather than like most men who are, and maybe some women who are being programmed by pornography, walk into a room, take your clothes off, and you're doing it, and not finding that sweet spot that has nothing to do with her quote unquote erogenous zones, and yet is highly erogenous. And so I just really appreciate it. It reminds me to slow down and ask more rather than assume that I know.
And it reminds me that we're all at choice. Like there's some people that think because I don't drink or I don't do this or that, that I have less than somebody else. There's some people that would think that these two, because they couldn't use their genitals, had less than somebody else had. And I just want, I guess my takeaway and what I want to give, if you're willing to receive it, is that we all have limitations, whether they're physical, mental, financial, health, at some level. Some people have really strong ones like these two did, and some people have less ones. But we are only as limited as we judge ourselves to be. And so with the cards that you were dealt, because we're dealt cards in life, he had cerebral palsy or muscular dystrophy. Again, I forget which one it was. What can you do with the cards you were dealt? You know, what can I do living with the anxiety that I have, the depression, the alcoholism? How can I live my best life today? And I don't feel limited. And these two didn't feel limited in sex. They explored each other and they got in the bed themselves and they had an amazing, romantic, lovely marriage. I mean, I saw them kiss all the time, wheel over to each other. And they were just delightful. They taught me so much. And so if you think you're limited or you think someone else is limited, think about how are you helping that's hurting and how can you be there to support and cheer somebody on while they help themselves.
Amen.
Amen. Unless, do you feel led to say anything else tonight, or should we close a little early?
I think we can close a little early. I'm noticing I can be vulnerable, that I've spent a lot of time in my life being controlling and dictating to other people how they need to live their life in order to be happy. And this is off the pretense that I know best. And I've been humbled a lot in the last 4 years, to where I approach life now with I really don't know much. And it's best for me to not even proselytize or offer or promote, push onto people what I think I know. Right? But better for me to trust that they know. Deep inside of them, there's a navigating system, just like there is in me, that knows what truth is and what's correct for them. And you can see this play out through time with a lot of crazy, wacky ideas. Electric light bulb, the electric car, going to space. We've got two competing billionaires right now bringing people into space, right? And debate which one's actually going higher. Is that space or not? But still amazing. 50 miles up, 55 miles up, 63 miles up. People doing amazing things that other people who knew everything would have said, that's impossible. Waste your time. Don't try. Or that's too expensive. Spend your money elsewhere, whatever. Some kind of advice given. And as I've become more humble, I recognize that each person has that internal compass. And as they relate to their own spirit or to their own wisdom or God, and they follow that compass, that's a magical life. That's a life full of love, kinds of great, sober, healthy life. Yeah. And I really am here to support people in finding that inner compass, that ability to listen to their intuition, their true wisdom, and know that not their mind advising them. And so the more humility, and I know nothing.
I know nothing. The older we get, the less we know. That's what I say. It's so true. So thank you guys so much for being on with us today. And again, reach out to either of us. Our websites have scrolled across the bottom. We will do complimentary discovery sessions for 30 minutes. You can reach out to us. We'll see what's going on with you, what you're wanting to work on, and you can ask about our services and we see if we're fit. And a lot of times if we're not, we'll refer you to somebody that we think maybe. We like to have an authentic, honest fit with our clients that we work with. I know that I've heard Timothy say that. I think I can speak that for us both. But we'd love to hear from you. So reach out and set up that session. And please pass these calls on. Let us know if these contribute to your life. That's why we do it. We like to know if you're making a contribution. So if we have, you can let us know in the comment box, or you can pass it on to a friend that you think also might get something from it. And again, take care. And we'll be seeing you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Blessings.